This is the brand new Amflow PL Carbon, powered by the brand new DJI Avinox motor with 120 newtons of torque and 1,000 watts of peak power. Is this the new benchmark? Let's find out. Riders, welcome in at Sam's Bikes, where you know we only talk e-bikes. And what a month I've had, and so many questions out there, riders. New brand, new motor. So in this review, we're going to go super deep on every aspect of the Amflow and the DJI Avinox motor. There are timestamps, and riders, if you are thinking of buying this beast, you need to watch this review. And before we crack on, a massive shout out to Quadlock, the long-term sponsor at Sam's Bikes. Without Quadlock, Sam's Bikes does not exist, full stop. I absolutely love having my Quadlock on my handlebars, in my home office, in my camper van. And riders, you'll see in the slow motion right now on the Amflow, I'm doing some big doubles, some big drops, and watch, the phone does not move. I've never had a fail with the Quadlock on my handlebars. And the legends at Quadlock are giving new legends a 10% discount code off everything on their website. Link in the show notes, and also a massive shout out to Amflow for sending out the beast. The brand new Amflow PL Carbon is rolling on 29ers, or is mullet compatible. It's a full carbon frame coming in at 2.27 kilos, 160 at the front and 150 in the rear, powered by the brand new DJI Avinox Ebike Motor with 120 newtons of torque and 1,000 watts in peak power in the boost mode for 30 seconds. Available in either a 600 watt hour or 800 watt hour internal battery, 2-inch full color OLED touchscreen display, 2 wireless remotes, and the weight of the bike is coming in at a very impressive 19.2 kilos with the 600 watt hour battery. And the confirmed weight for the bike I'm testing with the 800 watt hour battery is 20.6 kilos, which is crazy for the spec of this bike. And the starting cost will be 6,499 euros. And geometry in a large, which I've been testing, was 475 in a reach, head tube angle 64.5, seat tube angle 77, and a BB drop of 345.50, and a 445mm chainstay, which you would probably agree are some solid geo numbers. And as I said, riders, I've been riding this beast for a month and arrived in a box. And when I was unboxing it, which took me about an hour, it's a little bit reminiscent of unboxing an Apple product. Super slick, really well designed, and I would say definitely on par with like the top of the line online brands, or maybe even a little bit better. And once the bike's all built up, I'm going to say it's a very beautiful bike, and the attention to detail is what you would expect from one of the major bike brands in the industry. So it's fair to say Amflow have done a great job. So it's all sounding really good, right, riders? So who is Amflow and who is DJI? Well, Amflow was launched at this year's Eurobike, and paired with the DJI motor, it stole the show. This bike was creating so much hype, there was people waiting for hours to test it. So Amflow is a startup, it is a standalone company, but it is supported in the startup phase by DJI. And who are DJI? Well, if you're not a fan of drones or a content creator, you might not know actually how big DJI are. They've actually got over 14,000 employees, and over half of them are engineers. And it's no surprise to me that they own around 70% of the total drone market globally. And Bayer and I have been using DJI products for the last 4 years. We've got microphones, we've got gimbals, and we've got 2 drones. And it's fair to say we're a big fan of the company, and we thought it was really interesting that they were releasing their first e-bike motor. Okay, riders, I can hear you say, Sam, just get on with the review. Okay, so I've been riding the Amflow PL Carbon Pro, so the top spec, for the last month at my local trails, at a trail center, and also at a bike park, La Panilla. So it's a 160, 150 trail bike rolling on 29 wheels. I only tested it in the 29 configuration. I will be doing the mullet soon. So you would be guessing right if you thought this was most at home at a trail center, sort of nice trails, nothing too gnarly. The platform's relatively stiff, the suspension's quite progressive, it does sit up in its travel, and it's a lot of fun to pump and flow, manual, jump. You can definitely feel it's 20.6 kilos. For me, it feels more like a super light bike when riding it than a full powered electric mountain bike. But then you've got the 120 newtons of torque when you need it. So when you point the bike back up the hill, this motor is sensational. It has so much power, and it's also so controllable. Like if you compare it to the Bosch Race, which also has a lot of power, this is more powerful, definitely, and more controllable. So it's a great climber. Sometimes when it's really steep, you do need to bend your elbows, put your head over, because the front gets a little bit loose, but it's completely fine. And I'm gonna say this is the best climbing mountain bike I've ever had. And how does it enduro ride? Well, I put it through its paces at all my local trails in North Madrid. They're pretty gnarly trails, and the bike can do it absolutely fine. I found I had to slow down a little bit more, pick my lines, and also noticed that because it's 20.6 kilos with the 800 watt-hour battery, the bike was less planted and maybe a little bit more nervous than some of the other full-powered e-bikes I ride, which is understandable because it is a lighter bike. I also found when I was really moving and I got a square edge hit, I felt the bike sort of push me up and stall me. And for the first couple of rides, it kind of put me off a little bit, but then I got used to it. And just when I got that square edge hit, I just pushed my body weight forward and it rolled me over it. So yeah, all in all, good enduro bike. You do need to slow it down to pick your lines better. And jumping, absolute whip it for jumping. You know, you got 160, 150. Trail bikes always jump better than enduro bikes, in my opinion. And being 20 kilos, absolute win. Because when you come down, if you don't get the reception quite right, you got less weight compressing when you land. I'm also gonna say I did find my butt a few times with the back wheel, jumping, and when I was riding steep trails. And the knock block in the handlebars was definitely getting in the way of my 80s style bar turns. But all in all, a great jumper. Also did spend a weekend at La Pinilla Bike Park, 1 hour north of Madrid, and had a great time. Now, the bike can do it fine, but I'm gonna say any 160, 150 trail e-bike is okay to ride at a bike park a few times a year. If you want to go to the bike park more than, let's say, 5 times a year, you're going to be better off with an enduro bike or a downhill bike because they're just cheaper. And if you do break stuff, it's going to be cheaper to fix. So now let's talk suspension. And the Amflow has 150 mils of travel and is a 4-bar, which was co-designed with Fox. Out of the box, I found it to be super fast and progressive, but somewhat harsh when pushed hard. I found the bike hard to settle and was a little bit out of control and skittish on the really fast trails. I ended up removing the stock token that was installed on the Float X, and it was so much better. But I'm not going to say it's a plush suspension platform. It's a fast progressive platform, which really is dynamic in the right trails. So there's no denying that Amflow have done a sensational job for their first e-bike. But the hero of this story has to be the DJI Avinox motor. Quite simply, it is brilliant. So we're going to go through all the specs of this motor and then how does it ride out in the trails. But riders, subscribe to Sam's Bikes because in the coming weeks, we're going to do a deep dive just on the e-bike motor and system. The DJI Avinox motor is 250 watts and 36 volts. It has a whopping 120 newtons of torque and 1000 watts of peak power in the boost mode, which you can access for 30 seconds. But I actually kept on using it, kept on pressing the button, and in 35-degree heat, it never overheated. It is quite addictive. It also has the traditional Eco Trail and Turbo modes, which have 105 newton meters of torque and 850 watts of peak power. You can also fully tune the Eco Trail and Turbo in the app, and you have 5 settings within inside each assistant mode for fine tuning. It also has an automatic mode, which is very smooth and natural. I found it took a little bit more effort from myself to ride it. I'd like to see the automatic mode tunable in the app. And of course a walk mode, which is pretty powerful. 2-inch full color OLED touch screen, 2 wireless remotes with all the functionality you can expect, the DJI Avinox app, which is pretty powerful, and the new hall sensor, which looks like a mini rotor, and it's collecting 42 points of information over a traditional magnet where it collects 1. And the weight of the motor is coming in 2.5 kilos, and the overall system with a 600 watt hour battery, the display, the remotes, the whole system is coming in around 5.5 kilos, which is really impressive. For me, the weight, 2.5 kilos, is impressive, but the overall size is the standout for me. And the integration, I think DJI have done a fantastic job. The motor is really well integrated. The display, I think the display is really good. I really like using it, but it could be a little bit more minimalistic. It does have a charging port here, which is useful and practical, but I think it could look better. The remotes, absolute standout, best I've used. And having two remotes, I didn't think I'd need it or like it, but the fact they're so minimalistic and wireless, and they do just sort of blend into the background of your cockpit, I really enjoy it. And the charging port, it sounds like something really simple, but you'd be surprised. A lot of companies just don't nail it. DJI have nailed it. And most importantly, how does the Avinox motor perform out in the mountains? Well, right, it's quite simply, it is sensational. It is the most powerful motor in its class. And you might think with all that power, it might not be manageable on those really steep techie climbs, but it really is. So with the 42 points of data reading from the Hall sensor, it makes the motor very manageable and predictable. It's also worth noting the Avinox motor really starts pulling and giving that power at higher cadences, around 80 to 120 RPM. But at the lower cadences, it pulls just fine. Also, it has the tunable overrun up to 2 meters. Put that all together, this is the best e-bike motor for climbing I've ever ridden. And how natural does the motor feel out in the trails? I'm going to say it feels between natural and mechanical, but you do have a lot of options for tuning in the app. And what about the sound going up and down the mountain? So we're going to head out now POV style. I'm going to have a microphone on my chest. I'm going to turn off the noise cancellation, and so it will be exactly what you hear out in the mountains going up and down. Okay, now for the sound test. So we're going up a reasonably steep fire road and the motor is off. Now we're in auto. Now we're in eco. Now we're in trail. Now we're in turbo. And now we're in boost. And I think you would agree with me, riders, over the sound of the bike on the trail, you can barely hear the motor. So it is pretty much next to silent. And now for the downhill, and I know you riders want to know if the motor has a rattle. I'm going to say it does have a small rattle. It's not as prominent as the Shimano EPA01 or the Bosch, and it's not as consistent, that rattle. So it's not consistently rattling. Sometimes on big hard G-outs, I do hear a rattle, but it's not a deal breaker for me. But riders, you make up your own mind. I'm going to hit a pretty nasty, fast, chunky downhill. You let me know what you think of the sound. And how does the Avinox motor feel over the limiter or when the motor's off? Well, I don't feel a lot of drag, so I think it decouples quite well. Probably similar to something like the Shimano EPA01. But also, riders, pretty much all e-bikes feel better when the motors are on and when they're not above the limiter. And how about the autonomy or the range? So for the last month, I've been using it with the 800 watt hour battery, and I've been impressed with how much range it has for how much power this motor has. The other day I did a ride and I was probably in boost or turbo, so the top two assistant modes, the whole time, and I did about 1,450 meters of vertical climbing, which I think is good for how much power this motor has. So overall, I've been impressed with the range, but I might like to see a 250 watt hour range extender because I'm not the fittest rider out there, and I do love to sit in those high assistant modes. It's also worth noting all the bikes are going to be coming with a fast charger. So this is a 12 amp charger. And for a 12 amp charger, this is really small. So you could put this in the backpack and say, like, go for a long lunch, an hour and a half. And this charger, within an hour and a half, is going to fill your battery from 0 up to 75%. So that's very impressive. And lastly, the DJI Avinox app, which is hugely powerful. And we are going to be doing a deep dive on that in the coming weeks. But the features I've really enjoyed over the last month of testing is how tunable each assistant mode is. You can also customize the display very much like an iPhone or a Garmin. So very much tune it to your liking. It's got auto record and you can link that to your Strava. You can connect your heart rate monitor to the system. You can do firmware updates over the air. You can also add a nano SIM card, which I believe has no extra monthly fees, and you can tag it on to your existing phone plan. It also has great security features, which I love. You can have a password on your touchscreen, so no one can just walk away with your bike. When you do walk away from the bike, your bike automatically locks. And if someone does tamper or touch your bike, the alarm goes off on the bike and it also sends you a warning or an alarm via the app on your phone. And I know all you legends are going to ask how the Avinox compares to all the majors on the market right now. Well, I'm going to put it like this. It feels like the Avinox has one more assistant mode than the rest. So it's definitely a faster, more powerful system. And also the integration, the remotes, the touchscreen, it does make most of the systems feel a little bit dated. And now to sizing, and the Amflow is available in 4 sizes, and I've been riding the large, and I'm 183 centimeters. Now, I'm also XBMX, so I like a bike to come up a little bit small. And I would say at 475 reach and a 35mm stem, the bike feels a little bit small for what the numbers suggest. And that's because we've got a 77-degree seat tube angle, so it pushes you forward on the bike. But when you're going downhill, it feels normal because you're not sitting down. Now, my advice to anyone would be to follow the sizing charts on the Amflow website if you are going to order this. And also, if you are an experienced rider or an XBMXer, maybe size down. And if you're new to mountain biking, size up because it's going to be more stable. The Amflow PL Carbon is going to be available in 3 models. The entry level with an 800 watt-hour battery, 6,499 euros. Then we have the Pro with a 600 watt-hour battery coming in at 9,799 euros. And the top of the pops, the Pro with the 800 watt-hour battery, the one I've been testing, is coming in at 9,999 euros. Now, I think the build is really well done. I might change the tires and the bars, but we'll get onto the things that I would change or I don't like about this bike in Not All Gravy. But overall, it's a great package. So how do you buy the Amflow? Well, Amflow is going to be set up as a hybrid. So you'll be able to buy it on the website or through a dealer. And that will be starting, they'll be taking orders in October. And the first countries available are going to be Britain, Australia, China, and Germany. And they are setting up a rather large dealer base, I've been told. So you will be able to test the bikes for sizing before you buy. You'll also be able to purchase the bikes in a shop. And you also have aftercare support. And Not All Gravy, the things I'd like to see improved on the Amflow. First up, sizing. So there's only 4 sizes, and that's starting in a medium. I'd love to see a small added to it. And the handlebars, I really don't like the handlebars. They're very stiff, they're very low, and they've got a funny sweep. And the tires, so these are hard compound tires. They don't offer a lot of grip or traction, especially for how powerful this motor is. First thing I'll be doing with this bike is putting some Schwabies on it. Shout out to the sponsor. And the wheels, like I found, like these are carbon wheels from Amflow, and I found them, I'm not 100% sure if they're too stiff or not compliant enough. I am going to try it with some aluminium wheels and just see what the difference is. And also, as much as I love the system and the power of the motor, I would really like to see the power come on at lower cadences. So as I said, the motor starts pulling at around 80 to get that 1,000 watts of peak power. I'd love to see it come in around 60 or 65. But overall, I'm really impressed with this bike. And who is the Amflow for? Well, obviously it's for anyone looking for the latest and greatest and the most powerful e-bike motor in its class. It's also for someone looking for like a super light, well, super light, this is 20 kilos, 20.6, with all the benefits of a full power or the most power. So it's definitely a unique bike, and I can see a lot of people are going to be interested in this. Who shouldn't be looking at this? Someone that wants to ride big, gnarly trails, like a super enduro, like a 170, 180. I think this bike can find its limit on those types of trails. Okay, legend riders, now for the conclusion. I hope you're still with me. There's been so much to unpack here. Starting off with Amflow. For the first e-bike they have ever released, they've absolutely nailed it. Like, it's pretty close or on par with a lot of the majors that have been doing this for many years. So it's definitely a home run for Amflow. But without a doubt, the standout for me for this bike and the review has to be the DJI Avinox motor. It is sensational. They have done a fantastic job and they are setting the bar higher in the industry, and it'll be interesting to see how all the majors follow suit. Anyway, riders, that is my 1 month review on the Amflow with the DJI Avinox motor. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions, like always, put them in the comments and I'll get back to you. And riders, stay safe out there. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. And we are going to see you soon.